Hi, I'm Mingzhe from discussion section A10. I'm here to share my thoughts after spending this quarter on ethnic studies course about land and labor. As a young adult at the age of 19, I'm in a phase of experiencing self-discovery and personal growth, which forms the perception of my own identities and the world. Besides, my identity as a male brings me responsibility to critically evaluate and question the traditional gender norms in society. As an Asian, I'm a part of the racial group that has experienced stereotyping and discrimination. Within the Asian spectrum, being a Chinese connects me to a profound historical and cultural heritage. They both shape my understanding of racial equity in a unique perspective different from other racial groups. Moreover, as a freshman in college, I'm able to seize the opportunity to access knowledge and explore myself on campus life through contacting peers from different backgrounds, which practically helps me engage in ethnic communications. In week 7, we talked about the race-based nationalism and its impact on the Asian immigrant labor in both Hawaii and California. From my perspective, race-based nationalism can be defined as the mindset of national identity that the dominant racial group promotes to establish hierarchical linkages among various races to maximize its political and economic interests. Based on this identity, some racial groups are designated with superiority to enhance the power of the dominant racial group to marginalize and exploit the inferior racial group as labor. According to the reading by Dr. Sasaki, the Portuguese, who had not long ago been designated as among the lowest of all the population, were now described as possessing the moral and aesthetic qualities of the white race. The reclassification of the Portuguese from non-white to white serves to amplify the group of white settlers. By broadening the range of the defined whiteness, the Haole elite could increase their political control on the non-white laborers, thus reinforcing their dominance and racial hierarchy over Hawaii and securing their empire. The aha moment of this week came during the Dr. Sasaki's recorded lecture. She demonstrated the problem associated with the solution that aims to increase the white settler population by racializing the Portuguese, who were already in Hawaii as European and therefore white. However, the majority of the Portuguese in Hawaii at that time were from the Portuguese colonies of Africa rather than the European continent, which means that they have dark skin and no phenotypical trait associated with whiteness. It is sarcastic that those Portuguese from colonies in Africa who were once likened to blacks were strategically redefined as white by the Haole elites to achieve their political and economic goals. It shows that whiteness is not an inherent or fixed identity, but an endowed and malleable social structure as a tool for maintaining power and control. In week 9, we explored the concept of criminalization and racialized rightlessness. Criminalization is the process by which certain groups are typically perceived as intrinsic criminal based on their racial identity and social status. Racialized rightlessness is the condition in which marginalized racial groups are denied access to legal social rights and protections based on their racial identity. According to the reading by Carcho, processes of criminalization regulate and regularize targeted populations, not only disciplining and dehumanizing those ineligible for personhood, but also presenting them as ineligible for sympathy and compassion. Dehumanization deprives the humanity of marginalized racial groups, labeling them as illegal, which normalizes the violence and injustice against them. Therefore, the legal and social systems deny marginal groups empathy and protection, depicting them as the group undeserving of justice. So, whiteness serves as a shield against being perceived as criminal, while non-white racial groups are considered as innately suspicious. It is essential because it emphasizes the interaction of law and race in legitimizing violence, prompting me to question how justice is constructed based on racial and class identities. Through the combination of criminalization and racialized rightlessness, The white embeds racial hierarchy into social justice and laws, which perpetuates their racial superiority to violence. And the aha moment of this week came during the lecture when we were discussing de facto status crime. In class, we defined it as others' perception that a person of certain status is certain to commit future crimes and may well have already committed crimes unwitnessed, rather than simply just illegal activity. It reviews the situation in which certain groups are perceived to be criminal simply because of their racial identity or social status, regardless of their behaviors. Similar to criminalization and racial rightlessness, de facto status crime enhanced my understanding of the role of the legal system and social norms in perpetuating racial hierarchy and social injustice towards the vulnerable racial groups. Among all the topics discussed in this quarter, the topic that impacts me the most is labor and industrial capitalism. It changes my understanding of the industrial capitalism that maximizing its profit by exploiting advantages from the immigrants who are of negligible social power and limited protection. Keeping this knowledge in mind, I will become more sensitive to recognize those unfair and vicious work that exploits its workers with lower wages, longer working hours, and inferior social welfare through discriminations on identities. Thank you for listening.